Welcome to the GSMC Pets Podcast, the show that caters to pet lovers of all kinds. We'll talk about pets on social media, pets doing amazing things, and how to take care of the pets in your life. Whether your pet is a dog, a cat, a llama, hamster, reptile, or something more exotic, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Pets Podcast.
GSMC Pets Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Samantha Melvin, and I hope you've been having quality time with your pets. I sure have, especially with Mr. Eisen over here, who is currently cleaning himself while I am recording this for you. Now, I will guarantee that our pets will probably be spoiled rotten when the usual routine comes, and then everything will have to suddenly go back to normal. But for now, let's sit back and relax and talk about some pets on the tube, or at least my top 5 favorite movies that involve pets. So, what are these favorites? Just a quick list. So, we'll be talking about Kit Bull, Polly, Homeward Bound, Babe, and the 1974 version of Benji. So, to wind down, I'd love to talk about a show called Pit Bulls and Parolees. And again, you guys should have an idea of my feelings about pit bulls. So, I love them, if you don't know. But, let's start off with Kit Bull, and let's get ready to feel, a nice roller coaster of emotions, because that's basically what that little short is. So, Kit Bull. Just a little bit of background information. Well, just one little thing about it is that it was nominated for an Academy Award last year, and it was for Best Short Film. Unfortunately, it didn't win, but I did hear that Hair Love was actually really good too, so I need to get around to it. But, Kit Bull. What exactly was it about? Well, Kit and Bull, two separate things. And this is, pretty cute. Play on words. But Kit as in kitten, Bull as in pit bull. And you put it together, it's a Kit Bull. I thought that was pretty fantastic. But the story itself is, again, as I said, a roller coaster ride. So it starts off with this cat, a stray cat, or kitten, basically stealing food and finding its little place in a junky backyard. And it wakes up to the sound of this dog being brought in. And of course, as a kitten, it's going to be afraid of, big dog. But just the initial impression of this dog is that, well, we can assume it's a pit bull, but also it has the most adorable little face. It's just straight up sweet. You cannot see any stereotypical meanness or anything like that. This is like a legit pit bull. And if you guys know the true character of a pit bull, then you would totally get this picture in your head. But, so, basically, over time, it's like a development of this pit bull and kitten relationship. And on the side, you also see the really ugly side of dogfighting, which is, depicted in this, but not graphically. It's actually suggested throughout the time, and it's mostly kind of told in the perspective of the kitten. So the kitten, sees this gradual downturn of the pit bull's happiness, and it tries to make him happier. But over the movie, you see, the pit bull starting to get cuts, and it's always sad, and you definitely know by the other vicious barking in the background, and just the physical condition of him, that it's dogfighting. And basically we have this entire build-up to this kitten trying to save this pit bull. And they actually do escape pretty effectively. Even at the last minute, it was very intense. And at the very end, like, they have their happy ever after. They're roaming around the streets, and some people find the kitten. And then the pit bull comes along, and, he's a little nervous because people have treated him badly, But these two individuals brought both the kitten and the pit bull to their home. And, again, they lived happily ever after. It's a very short movie. But, as I said, it was nominated for Best Animated Short Film. So there's also some reviews that I really wanted to go through. And that was one by Nicole Clark from the San Francisco Chronicle. And it uses uses an unlikely animal companionship to tell a story that is about compassion, friendship, and redemption. It also ends with a beautiful sweeping vista of San Francisco from the top of the Bernal Hill, adding to this beautiful location, and kind of swells this very emotional, just the emotions that you're feeling as you're watching it. Everything seems good at the end. Things feel perfect. It's picturesque. And, it also captures the warmth of friendship and the hope for a new beginning. And that's really something that is huge about this movie. It's, these two animals in the end are leaving this junkyard to move on to some place that is hopefully safer for them. And, kind of moving on with the reviews, there's this man named Dan Sarto. He said that the film was brilliantly and beautifully designed, and he said it's hard to imagine the story being any more engaging or enjoyable had the filmmakers chosen to use any other animation technique. So, like CGI, all that kind of stuff. The entertainment world, as he said, is like full of 3D animation, but Kid Bull shows like how 2D animation in the right hands can show something special in a story that is good for 2D. And then there was Kate Schwelcher. Also, she felt that the short might even open up more meaningful conversations about the reputation of pit bulls being an aggressive and dangerous breed, and it definitely sheds some light on this particular issue. Now, I have to say that I love my pit bulls. My puppy Regina is part pit bull, part Boston Terrier, and there are a lot of scary things that kind of come along with owning a pit bull sometimes. Like, you get people getting kind of upset about seeing other pit bulls kind of walking around, and I actually witnessed one time at a Veterans Day parade where a pit bull was in the parade, and it's just kind of slow moving at one point, but then this lady is yelling at this father and child, and she's basically saying, "You better get that kid away from that dog. It'll hurt him." And that was just a very heartbreaking thing, because I've only known good pit bulls. Another thing that, is also very stressful is the idea that in the event that maybe your pit bull gets way too excited and plays a bit too hard, that could potentially lead to somebody being very afraid and also labeling your dog as dangerous when, honestly, the dog is just playing. And, that requires, more training. There's a lot of pressure that is put onto pit bull owners. Like, there has to be a lot of training to make sure that they can restrain themselves, to be nicer at play, basically getting rid of that bully behavior, that really game behavior that they might have. And that's something that's really hard. Now, back to Kid Bull. The emotional impact on me was that I was always, like, on the edge of my seat, kind of, scared the entire time about what was going to happen to the little pit bull, and, just tears, like towards the end, where you see like, how everything just works out. And also, the tears of, just feeling for this poor dog, being placed into a violent situation that I didn't even want to be in. So it's something to really think about, and I'm already getting a little teary-eyed thinking about the short, actually. But it's an emotionally impactful short, and I think it's important for people to, witness that it's not the dog, because that it's not the dog that, is dangerous. It's honestly people who are dangerous, and more specifically, people who don't really have a moral compass and use others for their own gain. Because, well, that the people running dog fighting rings don't care about the dogs. They only care about, making money, getting a cut of, whatever amount they bet for. So it's a very heartbreaking situation. And actually, Cookie was in danger of becoming like a bait for dog fighting. And I would really like everyone to try to be more aware and more accepting of pit bulls. And also, if you see anything that is at all stressful or, suspicious in particular, if there's anything suspicious going on when you see, like, people going in and out and, like, you hear a lot of dogs barking, and possibly some violence going on, it's very important to report it as soon as possible. Because, again, even if it wasn't a pit bull, any other dog, you'd still want to make sure that this dog was okay. Same, despite breed, it is huge to be aware for their sake. But on a happy note, despite it not winning the award, the Academy Award, it's still something that I would love to return to, and maybe in a few years. I don't think I could watch it very soon, because I think I watched it around the time it came out. So it was a very powerful kind of movie to watch, and it really, really made me want to, look out for the little pitties a little bit more. But also on the cat side, just the companionship side of the pit and the cat, just seeing how friendship can really help and save an individual. And that kind of goes along with humans too, right? If you're willing to extend a hand, that's always very important for an individual, I think. But anyway, we are going to take a brief break, and I definitely mean a brief break, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite movies of my childhood, and it is called Polly. I wonder if you guys are familiar with it, but it involves a bird kind of thing. Polly wants a cracker, that kind of deal. But you'll learn more about that after this break.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
We are back, and we will be moving on from Kid Bull. I have so many other things that I want to say about it, but you know what? Go ahead, you are able to watch it, do it, because you will not regret it. Just have some tissues by this nearby, because you will definitely cry just a little bit, just a teensy bit. Anyway, we are going to talk now about the movie Polly. As I said earlier, as a hint for what this movie would be like if you're not familiar with it, Polly Want a Cracker. It is about a bird. It is a blue-crowned conure, and the biggest hook to this is that this bird, Polly, is actually intelligent, and he can speak, and he can actually have conversations with people. Like, not the rehearsed kind. It's more of the, hey, how are you doing? And I want to go to Atlanta to have some, what do Atlanta people have? Aside from traffic. Either way, Bird would probably not want to go to Atlanta. Anyway, let's kind of talk about this story. Like, what is it about? I don't really care for any of the other actors. My main thing is Tony Shalhoub. He plays a Russian janitor named Misha, and he is essentially, like, I would say the secondary character, because he's going to be helping Polly out later on in the movie. But from the very beginning, Misha comes into this research lab, and he finds this bird, and he soon finds out that this bird, Polly, can speak to him. And they start to go into this long story, and it's basically a frame story. And Polly starts a story about how he was given to this young girl, Marie, and she had a really bad stutter, and it caused a lot of stress for the family, but Polly absolutely loved her, and she loved him so much. And the very frustrating thing with this entire thing, Polly was actually really helping her develop her ability to speak clearly and without any issue, but her dad grew jealous of Polly for some bizarre reason. Pretty much he wanted to have that same connection with his daughter that she was having with Polly. And the second that he got to remove Polly from her life, he did it. And eventually he ended up in a pawn shop where he developed a really bad vocabulary, I'll say. Words that you would not say to your mom, hopefully. He meets this guy that will return in the future, so I'm just going to say he's a very shady-looking guy. And then this woman named Ivy, an elderly woman, she is an artist, and she's actually going on this road trip throughout the nation. And she decides that she wants him, and pays for him at the pawn shop. And, she just wants to make him less rude, because Polly has really gone downhill since he lost Marie. And, the two go on this trip together, and one of the major things I remember about this movie was that she was always drawing Polly, because he was a pretty bird. And the very sad thing is, this trip is cut short because, Ivy goes blind, and eventually, she can't drive anymore because, she can't see, obviously. But Polly is there with her until her very last day, and a major thing about this movie is, he wasn't really sure how to fly, and, he's an older bird, but he did not know how to fly. After Ivy passes away, he figures out a way to actually fly, and he's able to go to another location where he meets up with this guy named Ignacio, and he becomes a part of this little troupe of conures, and they sing and perform for people at little bars and stuff. This guy who I referred to earlier, that was in the pawn shop, his name is Benny, and Benny really, really wanted Polly. He recognized Polly right at that second, and Ignacio was not going to have it. So basically, Benny creates chaos and because Ignacio is a migrant worker, he bolts, for a good reason. And so then he bags Polly, and then he enters a life of crime, pretty much. And it's a very short-lived, because he's caught and left behind by Benny. Because, well, Benny is kind of a jerk. But this then led to him being sent to the animal testing lab, and he was studied for his intelligence and his ability to speak. And they kept on promising, because he was always talking about her. He was always asking about Marie. When will he see Marie? Can you find Marie for me? And eventually, they're promising him this, that they'll get Marie for him. And then he finds out that they're not gonna do this. They're going to be keeping Polly for the time being until whenever. They don't intend on finding Marie for him. So, because he learns that he's being lied to, he decides to make a fool of the lead scientist in front of all of his colleagues and pretends that he's just a regular bird that can, parrot, basically. And, of course, the scientist is not happy, and Polly is punished by having his wings clipped so he couldn't fly. So, again, this kind of idea of freedom for Polly. Like, in the beginning, he was free and he was happy, and he was about to learn how to fly. And then as he continued his adventure with Ivy, like, he was on the road, he was enjoying life, and then things started kind of turning for the worse when he met up with Ignacio. He met a bird that he really liked, all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of leads up to this frustrating thing where he no longer has that freedom that he had, honestly. Anyway, back to the main story that's framing everything here. Polly and Misha, Misha decides to escape with Polly and find Marie. And eventually they do find her, and the thing is that Polly doesn't recognize her because it's been years since he's seen her. She's all grown now, and she's a woman now, and he didn't believe that was Marie. So earlier in the movie, it was established that he had a favorite song, and she made sure that she could connect with Polly by saying, okay, well, let me sing this song for you. And then everyone is happy because he's like, oh my gosh, it is Marie. And then he flies over to her shoulder and they're all happy and stuff. But, overall, the movie did generally pretty well. For the BAFTA Children's Award, it won for Best Children's Feature Film. And it also won, the early screens for Bronze Griffin. So that was did pretty well. So it was nominated for the AMA Award, the Young Artist Award, and I have to say, this movie had such an impact on me as a child. Just the idea of freedom and having someone, like a home base for someone to, love and take care of you, and where you're able to have that connection. And, some people are single. Some people don't care that they're single, but more than likely they might have a pet that they love and adore, or a friend that they love and adore, and that's their home base where they go and reach out for their main source of love. So it's very possible that this movie has affected me in a way that I seek out individuals that I feel that I can love, and then that hopefully they would genuinely love me back. And, I have my husband now, but, just for other people. It applies to other people. But, Polly is such a good movie, and I would say it would be a fun movie for your kids. You might get a little bit of the cheese factor if you're an adult, but I'd still recommend it. And it's just looking at the bond of, a pet owner and the pet, which is pretty strong here in this movie. But I talked a lot about this one. But I will say that we are going to take another break, and next time we are going to be talking about a very popular movie that, brings a lot of nostalgia to it, and that is going to be the movie Homeward Bound. And I bet you guys are all excited to hear about Sassy, Shadow, and Chance. But we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
So, we have talked about Kit Bull, and the little duo, the adorable little duo. And then we talked about Polly, that wonderful little bird. And now we are moving to a trio of our favorite pets. I imagine that a lot of millennials look back at this with so much nostalgia. I do. And we are going to talk about Sassy, Shadow, and Chance in the movie Homeward Bound. Now, I didn't realize this, but this was actually a remake of a movie. I'm not going to guess when it was made, but it was definitely remade. This was done in 95, I believe. No, 93, because Babe was 95, I believe. Anyway. So, let's just talk about what this movie was about. So, in one part, it's going to be showing the evolution of Chance, who is an American bulldog. And then you have Sassy the cat and Shadow the golden retriever. Again, this is all about Chance's evolution into finding family and accepting family and, coming to terms with sharing his life with other people that love him and he loves back. So, it starts off with a wedding, and Chance is just a huge jerk, and he destroys the wedding cake. And I imagine that after that, he was very nervous about what would happen to him, especially when the family is like, okay, we're going to San Francisco temporarily because Dad needs to do some work over there, and the entire family leaves, which is ridiculous, and they leave the pets to stay with her mom's friend from college. So, Chance is super excited, and the others aren't so much, because, well, they miss their buddies. I mean, Chance is for the youngest boy, Sassy is for the girl, one of the girls that they have, and Shadow is the dog for the oldest brother, and I think his name is Peter. But, anyway, moving on to this. The friend of the mom's goes to do a cattle drive, and she tells her neighbor to please watch over these animals, and he somehow misunderstands and doesn't look after the pets at all. So all of these pets, start to get worried. Sassy and Chance are saying, oh, we were abandoned. And Shadow, you've probably noticed how, if you've seen the movies, you probably noticed how devoted and how much he loves his kid, pretty much. And he decides that he is going to go home. He's going to make the trip home. And, the others join him because, well, what else do they have to do aside from wait and hope that somebody will come back? Because they don't know. So they travel through Sierra Nevada, and Shadow is leading by instinct. And eventually, they lose Sassy on the way, and it's just Shadow and Chance. I'm not going to tell you what happened to Sassy, by the way, just in case somebody who is listening has not watched Homeward Bound. So, you will see what happened to Sassy. And, so, let's see. The group comes back together after, like, a thing with a mountain lion, which is really intense. And essentially, they start continuing their journey together, and they're all happy because they're together again. And Chance being, this very spirited animal, very independent and, free-spirited, he tries to make friends with a porcupine, and this porcupine quills him in the face. So he has multiple quills on his muzzle, and he's absolutely miserable. And, I imagine that is a huge thing for really excitable pets, the ones that think that they're invincible. It's just how it is, I guess. Eventually, well, for instance, Regina is quite frightened of noises that come from behind her. And that is just something that will change her demeanor and make her more cautious. So it just kind of, it humbles them to some extent. Now, as they are going around trying to find home, they find a little girl who is lost in the woods. And she's stuck in this tree, and the three of them decide to cuddle up on her and to wait the night out. They wake up to people calling for her. And Shadow, being the hero dog that he is, leads the rescue party. And the great thing about this is that the people recognize Shadow, Chance, and Sassy. But unfortunately, the pets don't understand that. They can't read minds. But they take the three of them to an animal shelter, and Chance starts panicking because it's, he thinks it's a dog pound. And that kind of suggests to me that he had a very, very bad experience at a dog pound. But, we could talk about the psychology of it later. But, they take Chance to remove the quills from his face, and at this point, the family has been contacted, and they try to, start heading over there to pick him up. So they escape, unfortunately, and the family is there very upset. Not that, not upset with the people, but upset that they were too late, and for some reason their animals are just being ridiculous at this point. But the saddest part of this movie is, basically towards the end. In my opinion, is one of the saddest parts. But, it's basically, I'm not going to tell the entire ending, but, Shadow gets in a very rough spot, and he's not able to come with everyone else. So he tells Chance and Sassy to, get going, forget about him. And at the very end, and this is, you see Sassy and Chance come up upon the horizon, and one of the kids, I believe, spots them, and then they just start going and running over to each other. And it's a very nice reunion, but Peter comes out and he doesn't see Shadow. Well, eventually, it's like a little fake out, pretty much. And you see Shadow limping towards, them, and, and he's happily coming home to his boy. Now, by the end of it, Chance believes that, he has a family, and that he has a place of his own that he can live, very happily. Now, that's basically the entire movie. Hopefully I didn't spoil it too much for you guys. But apparently, Michael J. Fox voiced Chance. I don't know about anyone else in this movie, but definitely Michael J. Fox, really killed it. But, Roger Ebert said that this was frankly designed for kids, and it has certain craftsmanship and an undeniable charm. And if you find yourself watching it with a child, you may end up liking it almost as much. So, Ebert had such a big opinion of this, based on that. And Homeward Bound has been a very popular movie. Like, whenever I talk to people and, pet movies come up, they're instantly going to think, Homeward Bound? Did you talk about that? But just for this particular movie, it was just joy and tears and the warmth of, just togetherness and happiness. And I just can't get enough of this movie. I'm probably going to, hang up and no, I'm not going to leave just yet, but I will probably watch Homeward Bound later tonight. But we are going to set up for another break, and we are going to be talking about Babe. The little piggy, Babe. And I'll go ahead and say that Babe was probably the greatest inspiration for people to go and find little piglets, to keep as pets. And, I don't know if I have a problem with it, but it's, those pictures and videos online are just so freaking cute. I love them. But, again, it's how you treat your pets and, domesticating. But the entire story of Babe in this movie, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to talk to you about it.
Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then, the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Alright, and we are back, and, well, we've had a nice long talk about different movies. So we started off with Kittball, and it's the short film that you could actually find online. And then we talked about Polly, my all-time favorite, and probably the most memorable movie for me. And then we got into Homeward Bound, which is just a timeless kind of movie. And as I said earlier, I didn't realize that it was a remake of a previous movie. But now, I would like to continue with this new one. And it actually was a movie that I watched frequently whenever we visited my grandma's place. And that movie is called Babe. The little piggy that ended up being a good shepherd, a herding dog, pretty much. And it has such an inspirational story to it, and again, it ties into this thing with family and togetherness that I'm just a real sucker for, let's be honest. And I will say that for the most part, Babe is a very happy, also cheesy kind of movie. I love it. And it's great for kids. So, essentially, in Babe, if you're not familiar with Babe, essentially this movie is about this pig finding his place in a new environment. Like, he was orphaned, orphaned is a code word here, but he was orphaned as a very young pig, and he was taken home by a farmer who won him by basically guessing his weight right, which is kind of funny, and I would love to try that out. Anyway, so basically, Babe is brought into this new environment, and he's scared. He doesn't know what to do, and he finds a lot of guidance from one of the herding dogs, and she's actually really focused on her own puppies, and she kind of takes Babe under her wing until she's actually kind of traumatized that her puppies are sent out for adoption or sold, whichever. But it was then that Babe like made it clear, it's like, I can be your son, I can be your puppy. And, you know, it just kind of tightens the bond of, you know, family and just kindness to an individual that is in need of help. Now, over time, we get to see Babe, like, trying to find, you know, how his place to show that he's useful in this farm, because, well, if you're useful, then you get to stick around. If you're not useful and you're edible, well, you are probably gonna be eaten for a holiday feast. So, but at the time, Babe was not thinking that he could be eaten. He was just kind of living. But eventually, he started trying to herd sheeps, and with his border collie friend guiding him, she essentially said, okay, you gotta be mean, you gotta be aggressive, and if they don't do what you want, you bite them. So, there's that. It was very, you know, very structured, very violent kind of feedback for him. So he tries that, and the sheep laugh at him when he tries to bite them, because, well, it's not as effective as a dog. You've seen those canines on, you know, on them, so I would not want to be bit by them. But I have never seen a pig's teeth, so I'm just going to assume that it's not very effective in biting. But he learns that all he has to do is ask nicely, and they'll do something for him. And that's, you know, that's a very straightforward kind of message to people, especially kids, that, hey, you don't have to be rude to get what you want. And basically, if you ask for consent, there's a possibility that I'll say yes. If I don't feel like it, well then, I guess we're going to go around and do whatever we want. But overall, I was just kind of, you know, tickled by that scene where he's actually proving that he's useful to the farm. And later on, we get to see a very sad point in the movie where he realizes, people eat pigs. And he becomes so depressed about it. And, you know, he's wondering, like, how long will I be useful to the point that that I will be eaten by these people? So he runs away, and he gets sick, and the farmer ends up, you know, taking care of him, nurturing him so that he can get better. And he actually ends up breaking into a song and dance, which is very, very charming, actually. And it just makes me wonder, like, how many people have sung and danced for your sick pet? I know I have. And I also kind of bundle them up into little blankets, and, I give them a kiss on the forehead and say, I hope you feel better. Because, my pets are like my babies. So that's kind of a sad thing to say. Actually, no, it's not sad. My pets are, something that I value. I don't know if I'll ever have kids, but you know what? My pets are my kids, and that's okay. So, anyway, Babe starts feeling better, and then he starts, both physically and then mentally, because now the farmer is kind of showing that Babe is different. Babe is valued, and he's wanted, and, people care about him. So that was something that was a really good thing. And, showing your pet that you care about them is a huge part in making them feel more comfortable at home, right? So anyway, we get on to the rest of the movie. In the third act, he is in a herding competition, and, of course, people seeing a pig being included in the line of herders, people are going to laugh, right? So he actually shows himself to be very, very good at his job after a little help from one of the other dogs. And essentially, hey, you need to say this kind of password kind of thing. And, you know, it just kind of gets deeper and deeper into the consent thing, right? But, you know, eventually Babe is successful and he wins the competition. Everyone is happy, and one of the last things that the farmer says, I remember, is, "That'll do, pig, that'll do." So it's just something that kind of sticks with me, and I love it so much. And you're probably going to hear me say I love it so much a lot more. So, let's see. For Babe, there was a lot of success in it. Like, it made like over 36.7 million at the box office in Australia, and then over 254 million worldwide. So that's pretty impressive. It has a lot of critical acclaim. It's won a few awards. It was nominated for a couple of Academy Awards as well. So you can definitely say that this is a very successful movie that it honestly never gets old. So if you've never watched it, I would definitely say take a second and, you know, watch it. Watch it with family. Watch it with your sleeping grandma dog, which I'll probably do later on. And just take your time to enjoy yourself. That's all I gotta say. Let's see. The next thing that we are going to be talking about is it's a really special thing for me. I had to actually search for it online because you couldn't find it on Netflix. There was like a version of it for Christmas that I tried to watch, but it wasn't any good. So this one is actually called Benji, and I don't know how many of you know about Benji, but it's not going to be the most recent version of it that's available on Netflix. Actually, the Benji from 1974. So, pretty good, actually. And it's described as the best dog romance with adventures and, you know, talking about kids being kidnapped and just kind of this very strange movie that I really want to share with you because, well, I mean, why not? And you guys need a little bit more history in your film studies, I think. Right? I hope so. Anyway, I will be right back and just take a second to listen to our commercials.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Now we are back, and we're going to be going a different route. We were talking about Babe and how Babe was like an honorary dog herder and just very, you know, it's very focused on, you know, Babe as a main character, but we get to see what Babe has to say and all that kind of stuff. Now we're going to switch to a protagonist that in a movie that is in the perspective of a dog, but it's a little different. So I'll go ahead and say that Benji from 1974, not the new versions on Netflix, Benji 1974 version was definitely a movie of my childhood, and I remember watching it, you know, a lot. And I have to say that it's probably one of the best dog romance stories with adventure on the side that is, pretty enjoyable. The major thing, though, is that it's not animated. It's using a real life dog and real people, and only the humans are talking because they're humans. And Benji has no words at all. Not even like a voiceover, nothing. So basically you're just, hearing him bark, hearing him respond. And I have to say, maybe it's very much so like Lassie. I'm not really sure. I've never watched Lassie before. But I will say that it was a very different and interesting way to perceive the world that Benji was in. So the movie kind of starts off with him doing his usual routine and meeting up with people that he usually does, like making his day full. And it's basically him starting off as like a young single dog, and people start making fun of him, like, oh, you're going to look real good and you're going to find a good girlfriend. And, eventually he does, and, they do the routine together. And the really funny thing about this routine is that it, has a very nice little, I think it's a piano jig with it, but it's very cute, and it's just, a good movement kind of song. And I will say that for some people, you might get tired of just that loop of routine that you see and Benji doing his usual stuff and people responding to him. But, I think it does set up a good background for him to know people that he can turn to in case of an emergency. And, well, surprise, there was definitely an emergency later on in that movie after he found the love of his life and wooed her, and now they're living together in his old abandoned house, which is kind of funny and cute. But in the second half of the movie, the kids that he likes to go to in the morning are actually kidnapped. And these kids really want to have Benji as their own pet, all that kind of stuff. It's, it's a real thing. And there was like a lot of drama between them, their dad, and the governess that they have. And basically these two kids are kidnapped, even though the original plan for them was to just disappear for a long period of time, like just looking at horses or something like that. And then their dad would be getting a ransom note for them because they've been missing and they've been taken, apparently. But it completely escalated to, oh my gosh, my kids are being kidnapped, and now the FBI and the police are involved. And Benji, well, here's a really interesting thing. These people are using Benji's house as basically their point of contact. So the kids are there, Benji sees them, and he gets really worried because, well, of course he knows these kids, and, in the back of his mind, he's like, I need to find help. Now there's another layer of Benji that we all have to know, and it's later revealed a little bit, kind of like a flash of memory, but Benji apparently, based on this little flashback, was a partner to a police officer some time ago, and his partner was shot in the line of duty. So seeing a gun, which he saw like a few minutes in by one of the kidnappers, he just kind of like had a really big reaction to it. And I always kind of think now, well, that seems like puppy PTSD, and it kind of, makes me, down the rabbit hole, sorry, it kind of makes me, think of instances in our everyday life of, animals having PTSD, which means I'll be doing some extra reading later on tonight. But anyway, Benji goes to the kids' homes, which is his first stop whenever he goes out in his daily routine, and then he tries to get the attention of the police, the FBI agents, and the parent, and the dad, and they don't want anything to do with him. They're focused on finding the kids, and they think he's being a real distraction. Well, so he goes back and he's dejected, but then he realizes later on that he could actually get like proof, and it was basically like some piece of paper scrawled, and it was like a draft of the ransom note. And it's like, why didn't you just throw it away? Don't leave it on the floor, guys. But anyway, he goes and he basically gets the draft. In the process, the love of his life is kicked really hard, and it looks like she is seriously injured. But, you know, Benji is like, I have to do what I need to do. She sacrificed herself so that I could save these kids, basically. But, man, that's a lot to really think about, actually. So he takes the proof, he gets the police and FBI to follow him back to his house. The kidnappers are caught, and they all live happily ever after, and Benji gets a new home. And also his girlfriend, who apparently had a broken leg. It was really sad. But, you know, it was also very cute seeing her walking around in her cast, though, again, she was hurt in the movie, hopefully not in real life. But Benji was actually pretty successful when it came to, like, just sheer commercialism, honestly. Like, they had a budget of $500,000, and they grossed $39.6 million in the United States. And it basically made it one of the top highest grossing movies in 1974. And the film actually also grossed like a total of $45 million worldwide. So, well, it looks like most of the money came from the United States, but it was still quite nice. And there were a lot of positive reviews, 86% approval rating of Rotten Tomatoes. Like, people today are still, giving it ratings and stuff. So it's still, it's showing pretty good, still a pretty good following for it. And this is something that I actually really like. And Variety, there you go, Variety. They called the film a very superior piece of family fare. It stars a dog, ragtag in appearance, and with a winning way that should endear it to every audience fortunate enough to catch the picture. On the other hand, there was this guy that gave it 2.5 stars, calling it agreeable, but criticizing a few cheap grabs for emotion. And, okay, yeah. I'll go ahead and say, yes, there were some cheap grabs at emotion, but it's a kids' movie. It's not high art. It's something for the kids to enjoy. And, if adults want to go down memory lane, that's for their enjoyment too. So, come on, guy, back off. But I will say that it's a very enjoyable movie for me. I loved it so much. And I just hope that I'll be able to find a copy of it sometime soon. So I'm probably just going to start making my Amazon wish list while I'm in isolation. And hopefully, that'll be a good list for, my birthday, maybe, Christmas, I don't know, surprise presents. But anyway, we are going to be on a break very soon, and I just wanted to kind of give you a sneak peek at what we're going to be talking about. And I'm sure you guys know of the difficulties of pit bulls and also parolees, and just in this world altogether. And honestly, I think that it would be wonderful to talk about this show, Pit Bulls and Parolees. And it's actually still going on today, which is great, which means I'll have to get back to watching it. Anyway, we'll be talking about that after the commercial break.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
So, we've talked about all 5 of those movies, most recently the one about Benji, and we absolutely love Benji, and the dogs that we're about to talk about are not as friendly looking, I guess, according to some people. They're not as friendly looking as Benji does, and you could always Google a picture of Benji and you can see what I mean. He's adorable. But we're going to be talking about pit bulls, one of the greatest loves of my life, and also parolees. And, well, I don't love them, but I always feel like they need a second chance. And this segment is going to be about pit bulls and parolees, which happens to be a show of that same name that is on Animal Planet. I need to look this up. Is Animal Planet the same thing anymore? But anyway, aside from the point, I'll get educated. So the show is basically credited over to the founder of this organization, and that is Tia Maria Torres, and she is basically a very hard, stern woman that has a mission. She wants pit bulls and parolees to basically have the stigma removed from them, essentially. And that's actually a huge thing because, well, there's so much to compare with pit bulls and parolees. Both of them, if you look at them just without knowing anything about them, you might be scared of them. They're given fewer things that they're able to do. For pit bulls, again, you have to, if you're renting an apartment, you have to make sure that it doesn't fall into the breed restrictions for sure. And then for parolees, well, they have very limited things that they can do. They always have to go into the parole officer. They have to do drug tests, all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that is just kind of holding them back. And that's what I find so interesting about this show. And just, I wish that there were more shows like this where it, really tries to fight stigma in this case. And so one major thing is the show is trying to combat the misconceptions of pit bulls and other similar dogs. So, when I say that, bully breeds in general, quote-unquote bully breeds. And also she, the owner, Tia Marie Torres, wants to find a way to get parolees, basically employment, and to build up their ability to stably transition to society, to make them fit into real life. And I don't want to say real life, but, just the outside world, aside from the shelter, essentially. And I think that's a very noble thing to do. And I've known some parolees. I work with students that are on parole, a few of them actually, and you can definitely see the struggles that they have to go through just to become functioning in life again. Because, well, what are they supposed to do when the world's against them? And it's the same thing with pit bulls. And for this show, I remember watching it, and I was it was maybe 5 years ago or something like that. No. I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to go anywhere beyond. It was 5 years ago. And I was very charmed by how Tia was able to work with the pit bulls and work with the parolees, and it's like a kind of a twofold story that goes on for each episode. There is a rescue and then also an adoption, and throughout it you're seeing the parolees interact with the pit bulls to help train them, to build trust again. And you can just see, like, I remember one episode, there was this new guy that, was very reserved, and he wasn't really sure how to really interact with anyone because he had been in prison for so long and he was finally out. And just seeing him eventually connect and interact with this one dog was very beautiful to me, and he was able to really show that, there is a human side to him. It's just been taken away from him. And I think that's a major thing that Tia really focuses on, is like humanizing and really showing that these people, these dogs, are genuine. They've been hurt. And they're looking for a place in their world. And that's something that I absolutely appreciate with her. Now, I think that it'd be a really good idea, since the Pitbulls and Parolees show is actually a legit rescue center. I figured that I may as well plug them. And let's see, the place that the rescue is called is Villalobos Rescue Center. And they have a fantastic site. You could go to vrcpitbull.com, so vrcpitbull.com, and you could even look for adopting a dog, contacting them, and you can also find ways to donate to them. And they have, let's see, they even have a restaurant. Tayo Tavern is one of the things, and I would say that you can go ahead and also check out their retail shop, just again to start funding their mission, essentially. And they even have their featured dogs that they've rescued and that are ready for adoption. So there's Peaches, there's Fontaine, what else? There's Bishop, Mary Poppins, and Cornucopia. Very interesting name for him. But I think it's just fantastic that we could be able to help just at least one rescue center to really bring out the best in people, especially the parolees. I've seen in those episodes how much these parolees grow, and it's mostly because they're taking care of something that is similar to them, and they can't really do that very often. Would someone trust them with, I don't know, their Bichon? Well, unfortunately, most people wouldn't trust a parolee ever. It takes a lot of getting to know them and breaking through those barriers. And that's what the show is doing, breaking through the barriers that these parolees have, and then also getting into the healing process for both the parolees and the pit bulls. Now, they have a frequently asked questions. So apparently they started employing parolees in 2006. And it's 2020 now? Yeah. So that's a good chunk of time. And they apparently save about 40 dogs a month, and they adopt out 30 dogs a month. And they go through the screening process for you to get this dog. They want to make sure that these pit bulls are going to good homes that'll take care of them and will meet their needs. And that's, most rescues do that. That's what they did when we first adopted Rhodey, our first dog, together. And, they did a little walkthrough. We lived in an apartment, so there was really not much that, he could get into. Their only concern was that, he was a running dog, so they weren't sure if he was going to be able to get enough exercise. And, well, lo and behold, Rhodey was a 30-mile-an-hour couch potato, so he was always sleeping. And anyway, so there are a lot of things that, they go into looking for the perfect place for their pets, for their dogs. And let's see, they say in their website, each dog that comes through their gates is an initial and upfront cost of $1,000 per dog. So a medical intake, vaccinations, heartworm disease, spay, neuter, all that kind of stuff. So they are pricey, but there are ways that you can donate, have a wish list, volunteer for them, sponsor a dog even. Like, all of this you can visit on their site, and it'll be fantastic for you to even, to jump into it. And hopefully when this entire pandemic thing is done, I can actually, focus more on, maybe sponsoring a dog. I don't think I could go and volunteer. I think that they're too far away from where I'm at. But they also have, happy endings, and I'm going to click on this right now, because, hey, we're going on an adventure together. So my internet is very spotty sometimes. But they have a section called Happy Endings, and I'm just very curious. And it's basically telling the stories of their dogs that have been adopted out, and they're doing really well. And I'm sorry, I'm becoming speechless just looking at these adorable dogs. And it looks like she doesn't just do pit bulls. She has different breeds too, but it was primarily pit bulls for her. They're like German shepherds. It looks, actually it looks like dogs that are typically kind of people are afraid of, or they seem intimidating to them. And gosh, okay, I'm gonna get away from this website, because I think I'm gonna end up adopting another dog, and my husband will kill me. But you know what? Oh my gosh, the time. I lost track of the time. But anyway, so with this show in mind, I kind of want to find it again and watch it. Since lockdown is pretty much lockdown. I can't really leave house. And maybe I won't be able to convince my husband that we can get another pit bull. But hopefully this episode gives you some options on opportunities to adopt those dogs that would normally be ignored. And also so that you can take time with your family to just sit down and watch these really good movies. I mean, I'm definitely going to be revisiting some movies, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely going to watch Benji again. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, which was brought to you today by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe, and also to write a nice review. We love reviews. And that you please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of this lets us know that we're doing a good job, or, just is a great motivator. And I imagine that you guys will, be excited to hear about more of our exciting content. And hey, maybe you could suggest some content for us too. Would love to see what you want to talk about. Anyway, thank you, and have a wonderful night, and peace out.
You've been listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.